Greetings from my tub. I'm in here getting 5% cash back when I pay in full with PayPal. No fees, no interest. Make the most of your money this holiday with PayPal. Save the offer in the app.
Ends 12/31. See paypal.com/promo terms. Points can be redeemed for cash and more. Pay in for subject to terms and approval. PayPal link and MLS 910457.
Silent nights. Total drag. But incredible holiday deals are happening now on Bose.com. Bose products deliver full, rich sound with the power to transform boring into anything but. Find something for everyone on your list and big savings. Right now on Bose.com. Holidays deserve music. Music deserves Bose. Shop Bose.com/Spotify.
Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. Fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, convenient installation options, and the best selection of Goodyear tires. Go to TireRack.com to see their Goodyear test results, tire ratings, and reviews, and be sure to check out all the special offers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Hi everybody, this is Eric J. Brown. Welcome back to YA OK. I am alone today because Alyssa, I think, is avoiding me. She is trying to, I think, steal my job here as the host of YA OK all the time. She's trying to usurp me. I believe that she was like, oh, I can't do it today because I have a doctor's appointment or whatever. But no, I think that she was setting me up for failure. And you know what, Alyssa? I hope you're listening because you have lost. To Alyssa, you did not succeed in that because today we talked with Abigail Hing Wen, who is the author of Loveboat Taipei, Loveboat Reunion, Loveboat Forever, Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies, and her new book, The Vale. It was such a fascinating conversation. Abigail is a Harvard graduate. She has a law degree. She was originally going to be a lawyer, she was originally going to teach law. And then she got her MFA from the Vermont College of Fine Arts, and she also works in tech. So she does AI ethics, and we talk a little bit about creativity and AI, what AI is doing, and how it is both a force for good, but is also a strong force for evil, of course, like everything that it's created. And we also talk a little about the movie industry. It was a really great conversation. So this is probably where I fail, is just talking to myself. It's a lot easier to talk to somebody else. So Alyssa, fine. Maybe I need you for the intros and outros, and I'll just get Mac to come back during the outro. So here's the episode. Let's get into it. 5 long years, our lives like magnetic fields.
You are my universe. You are my universe. And I'm just a planet.
Hi, Abigail. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you because, I know I have already known about the Loveboat books, and the Loveboat Taipei was also turned into a movie. But I can't wait to talk to you about Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies because I personally love different genres, and I feel like this is a big genre shift for you. So I feel like let's start off with Loveboat Taipei, just because that was your debut, that was your first book, and it was phenomenal. It was huge. Can you give us just a brief kind of pitch for it, and then what your inspiration for it was too?
Yeah. So Loveboat Taipei came out in January of 2020. It's now a trilogy, and it was adapted to the movie Love in Taipei on Netflix. And that is actually based on a real experience called nicknamed Loveboat. It's an experience where overseas diaspora youth from the Asian American community, Asian European, Asian Australian, go to Taipei for the summer to learn language and culture, but also find a spouse. And that's how it got its nickname Loveboat. The kids nicknamed it after the American TV show. And I went as a youth. I was invited by the Taiwanese government when I was 18. And I went thinking I was going to learn language and culture, which my character Ever also does. But I discovered this summer free-for-all. And so this weird, bizarre experience was only known within our community for a long time. And we'd go to parties and you'd find out, it was kind of like a secret handshake. Oh, you went on Loveboat. Did you hear this story and that story from this year and that year? And as I was writing, I'd actually written 5 novels. I had to bury all of them, which we can talk about. Yeah. But this one, it was like, I think, time to write it. And so the story itself follows a girl, Ever Wong, from Ohio to Taipei to learn language and culture, much like me. But the rest of her journey is really about learning who she is between cultures, but also how does she honor her family who want her to be a doctor with her desire to pursue dance.
Yeah. I think it's such a, like, I love anytime there is a book that kind of dives into this super specific experience, because like, even though the experience is specific to you specifically and like just the Asian diaspora, like I think that there's like a curiosity for people who aren't going to experience it, because it's kind of like a peek into something that they didn't know about. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's part of why it was probably like so well received up front, because it was, I mean, obviously it's a romance, which is already exciting because we love romance here at YAOK. But it's I think the specificity actually makes it stand out from everything else. And so readers are like, oh, that's something I've never even thought of or heard of before. I want to look into that and read it. Was it something that was kind of there while you were doing it, where you're like, oh, this is kind of crazy that I'm on this boat and it's just this wild free-for-all. This should be a book or a movie or something. This should be something that I am going to turn into something creatively in the future.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know I was a writer back then when I was on the trip. It's actually not a boat. But don't worry, everyone thinks it's on a boat. They
call it Loveboat, even though it isn't.
Yeah, they call it Loveboat because of the TV series.
You don't get to go on a boat at all? Like, there's no boat ride?
But don't worry, you're not the first to think that. Like, I've even seen marketing materials with a boat.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know I was a writer at the time. I kind of came to that later. I was thinking about being a law professor, and I had a novel swimming around in my head. And my husband, who heard all about it, was like, you're so excited. Why don't you just try writing this novel? And a little bit like telling someone, oh, just try building a rocket ship. But I did, and that novel came pouring out of me. But that wasn't until, several years after I graduated from college. And I was, thinking about being that law professor. So at the time I was on the boat, I just knew that it was just this bizarre, crazy experience. And for me, it was transformative. Like, I was the girl running away from my culture. And, I come and I show up on this program, and all these people know everything about being Asian American, being Taiwanese, being Chinese. They knew all about the food and about the Hong Kong pop stars. And they were really proud of their culture in a way that I wasn't. And I think that's, for me, the big learning that I tried to capture in Love in Taipei and Loveboat Taipei. Just like, we're so much stronger when we're whole. And I feel like from so many of the alumni that I meet who went on this program, they are whole because they have kind of reconciled those different halves of themselves, and with a stronger understanding of who they are, they're so much more grounded and able to be better leaders, better community activists and supporters, and just better human beings.
Yeah. So you said you grew up in Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there was, I am friends with Susan Lee. She's a Korean author. And her first book, Soulmates, is kind of about that, where she grew up in America, and for so much of her life, she was kind of turning her back on Korean culture because she was just trying to assimilate to American culture. Exactly. She just wanted American friends. She just wanted all of the kind of like what she just wanted to fit in, and because she was standing out. in a way that she didn't want to. And so I think that is a very I think that's such an important story to have be told, because I think now there's more people who are like kids specifically. I'm talking younger teens and younger. Now I'm hoping, I could be totally wrong about this, but I'm hoping that now people are more kind of aware of their roots and more willing to embrace it and not feel like it makes them stand out in a negative way, because I think that is so important. I mean, that Susan wrote Soulmates just because she had found K-pop at a time when she was trying to turn her back on Korean culture entirely. And she was surprised at how everybody who was involved in it was just so loving. And she started going back to Korea and like learning more about her culture. And I think that I just kind of am hoping that books like this are at least helping kids do that, like kind of embrace their culture, or at least learn more about it if they have been trying to kind of turn their back on it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's definitely the hope. And also, I think my editor from HarperCollins is Italian American, and she told me that Ever Wong's family is exactly like hers. And so I think part of the hope too is with that specificity, a high performing family where education is highly valued, that's relatable to other people, anybody who feels that pressure from their parents or from the world to be something that they're not deep down inside. And I hope that people are able to find that points of connection there. So the book actually has been translated into a bunch of other languages, which is kind of mind-blowing to me. A story about an Asian American girl going to Taiwan. But the book in France and Poland, I think both of them had the trilogy, have just dropped this year. And then, of course, the movie itself dropped on Netflix worldwide.
Have you heard from like Polish? I feel like Poland's YA scene is huge, because I have Polish translations of two of my books, I believe, and they're going to do a third. But I think Poland is the one that of all of my translations, I think Poland is the one that I get tagged the most in the Polish language. And I'm not sure if it's just my specific books or if it's all of YA is just kind of having a moment in Poland where it's like all of these big books are coming up. Because anytime I see different publishers that are including my book in there, it's other copies of books that I have read in English and that have been translated as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I did get tagged on a lot of posts in Poland that were beautiful, just gorgeous. They had the ballerina, the food, and so many there were also like mood boards. Yeah. And I get a lot of posts in Brazil, France, because the book just came out too. But yeah, I definitely, sometimes I don't even know where people are posting from, and I can't always tell because the English translation is everywhere. So I've seen it all over the world, and that is
so exciting. I love that. And then so there's Loveboat Taipei, and then you also have Reunion and Forever. Mm-hmm. How was writing? Did you have it planned that you were going to write a sequel, or was it just one of those things where after you finished it, you were like, what's my next thing? Maybe I should write a sequel. I don't know.
Yeah. So the secret of Loveboat Taipei is that I wrote it 25 times and had to bury it. It was too long. It was 5 points of view, too much story. And I didn't know what was wrong with it at the time. I just knew that it wasn't working. It was 120,000 words. It was shallow. And then I finally realized it was because I had 5 points of view and it was too much for one book. So once I figured that out, I cut it all out. I centered it on just one character, Ever Wong, who became our narrator. And I chose her because she had the furthest to grow from going on a program like this. She was the one running away from her culture, so she needed it the most. But then I had all this leftover story, and that became book 2. And book 2 is centered on Xavier Ye, who's one of the love interests in book 1 and a fan favorite. Sophie Ha, who is Ever Wong's force of nature roommate, who's just kind of always out of control. And in book 1, her journey is like she is just at Loveboat quintessentially to find a spouse. Like she is hell-bent on finding the spouse so that she can marry well and take care of her family. And I'm spoiling it a little bit for readers, but part of her arc there is learning that she actually has the power to go out and make millions of dollars herself. So book 2, Book 2, she's a freshman at Dartmouth, and she's doubled down where she's like sworn off boys, and she wants to be the best CS AI major Dartmouth has ever seen. But she immediately runs into trouble where her professor he doesn't get on board to her fashion AI app. And so it's a bit of a journey of like the girl in tech. And she ends up teaming up with Xavier, who also has his own issues. He has learning differences that were never diagnosed properly, and so he never got the help he needed. So the two of them both have been hiding in these shells, and over time in book 2 with Reunion, they get the whole gang together, they go back to Taiwan, and as they let themselves be themselves, that's when they start to realize that there's much more between them than they ever knew.
Was it harder to kind of, were you fleshing it out from what you had originally cut from the first book, and then kind of just made it more of a story arc just for her?
Yes.
Was that your writing process on it?
It's a dual narrative. And initially I knew it was going to be about Xavier. And Xavier, everybody loves Xavier because he's kind of the bad boy. And, you know, he's off the beaten path, and he's an artist. He's an incredible artist. So I knew it was going to be about him, but everyone in the industry was like, well, you need a girl point of view, because like book 1 is from a girl's point of view. And then as I was writing, I realized that Sophie also had a very interesting parallel story. So it ends up being between the two of them. But a lot of it is new. Book 1 was, it took place all in Taiwan, but I was able to move some of the unresolved issues for Xavier, but it was already naturally unresolved because I just didn't have space for it. So those issues end up moving to book 2, where he's able to confront his father, very similarly, like overbearing father who's just never accepted that he has learning differences. But I ended up kind of dreaming up the whole story around his entrepreneurial family. Sophie meets with his aunt, who's a fashionista herself, and ends up getting mentored by her. And the whole gang coming back was all new material.
Yeah, I feel like this is such a great example for aspiring writers who might be listening to this, because there's always this idea in your head where it's like, oh, but I don't want to cut out XYZ from my book because I feel like it is important.
Right.
But just because you're cutting something out doesn't mean it just is not going to exist anymore. It's always still going to be there. And I think that it is important to keep that in mind when you're doing your editing, because you're just trying to get what the best story is for this specific, like whatever your character that you want to focus on, you're trying to get the best story for them that the reader's going to enjoy. But this is something where you realized Loveboat Taipei was too long. So you're like, okay, well, I'm going to cut out these extra point of views. But you didn't just get rid of them entirely. They also became jumping off points for you to write other books that are new stories. And I feel like it's important for people to realize that. I think a lot of us can kind of get stuck in what we think is the best for our story, and it actually isn't.
No, absolutely. But it paid off because I knew my characters so well by writing it from my points of view that when I wrote book 1, all my secondary characters were really well-rounded, and it showed. And that's partly why I think we were able to get to the screen.
We talk a lot on the show about, we used to do the plotter or pantser question. I was at a book festival over the summer, and Kat Cho was on the panel I was hosting, and she said that she prefers the way George R. Martin describes it, where it's either a gardener or an architect. And I love that, because the gardener is like, you're planting seeds. You have an idea, you're planting the seeds, and you're just kind of seeing what grows, because that is how you're going to tell your story. It's like, oh, it's things that you've kind of already put there and are maybe realizing grew into something else. Yeah. And then the architect is like blueprints, and everything is structured, and this is how it is. How do you write usually?
Oh, I love that description, because I think I'm definitely the planter. And actually, this book just came out into the world a week and a half ago.
The Vale.
Yeah, it's a story about a creator, and this kid is building a virtual reality world, and he plants everything. So he plants seeds that grow into the blue forest. He grows elves that begin generically, and then they start to morph through the artificial intelligence into specific roles, like cooks and gatherers and chefs and healers. And I do think that my writing process is that way. I have lots of ideas. I don't know exactly where they belong in the novel, but I use Scrivener to just like pocket the ideas in different places. And then over time, I start to organize them into the right order. And then I start to consolidate it into like a thing that makes sense. I usually know the ending of my book or the high concept. And then I have to work backwards to figure out how I'm going to get there. And so actually it's very hard for my critique partners to read my works because there's no beginning and there's no way into my story initially because I'm just trying to find my way towards like this ending. I work by iteration and I just kind of keep chipping away at different parts of the novel until I have the final, but it takes a long time.
I feel like even we have not, this is a new thing, the gardener and architect. I think we've only been talking about it for maybe 4 or 5 episodes so far. But so far, everybody has been saying that they are a gardener. And I think because when we were saying plotter or pantser, everybody was like, oh, I'm a plotter. I have everything kind of planned out. And I think that this analogy of the gardener versus the architect is easier for people to realize that there is a little bit of unknowns in writing because even though you are planning, like I'm the same way as you, where I would usually have my characters and an ending and maybe some kind of jumping off point that may not even be the beginning. It's just like, I have to figure out where to start it eventually. But through that, I usually use that as a baseline and I'm just planting everything. And then I don't realize until I'm like halfway through a book that I've already left things subconsciously and I can pull those over. Yes. And I think that's just part of tapping into your creativity is, yes, there is structure there, but you still have to have the freedom to change if you're realizing, oh, there's actually something else happening here. Or you could even realize you're telling a completely different story, which has happened to me once.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you just have to
rewrite it.
Find the story. And I too find that there's so much that you do subconsciously that end up, you go back later and think, oh, it's working. It was all set up already. And you didn't know.
The Vale was, that was your master's thesis, right? The Vale?
That's right. Yep.
And was that the first book that you wrote, technically, even though it is the most recent published, or did you write more before it?
So I buried 5 novels before I wrote Loveboat Taipei, and The Vale was the last book that I buried. I wrote it in 2015. It's about a boy who creates a virtual reality AI-generated fantasy world. And it was too early to tell the story. My agent at the time was like, I don't know what this is. We never went to publishers. And, it's true, like nobody knew what AI generation was at the time. But I was working in the heart of the AI revolution. And I saw this powerful technology just seeping into all aspects of our lives. And nobody was doing anything about it. So I wrote The Vale in part to democratize access so that kids everywhere would know how to use this powerful technology, not to be afraid of it, but to take advantage of its potentials and also guard against its pitfalls. Like you need to be familiar with how it works. And that is my hope, that kids and the young at heart who read this book will have an intuitive understanding of this technology by the time they're done with the book.
Yeah, I know. And like, especially right now, everybody is kind of all over the place, I feel like, with AI. There's some people who are like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. And then there's like artists especially who are angry that basically billionaires have used their art to train their AI, which they're then going to make billions and billions of dollars on.
Right. Love trained on 6 of my works.
Yeah. And I was like, I would have kind of, we don't have to talk about AI the whole time, but I want to talk a little bit because you focus on AI ethics, and I'd love to know what clean AI is.
Yeah.
And maybe explain to our listeners too, because it's something I did not know about. And I think that if there is going to be AI used in our world, I think that is kind of AI that we should be kind of focusing on.
Yeah. So the Lee family, it's very important to them too, because they're artists, they're creators, and they train their virtual reality AI system on works that are outside the copyright. So in The Vale, it's like things like The Brothers Grimm, 1001 Arabian Nights, The Magic Paintbrush, which is an ancient Chinese story about a magic paintbrush that everything it paints becomes real. And that's very much The Vale. They also train it on their own works. So Bran himself has created lots and lots of paintings. I don't know if I'm able to show it to you, but there's a lab. It's a real world lab. He's got all his drawings in the background, and they take those paintings and And they turn that into animated works, which is also their own works. And then they use the AI to rip off of that. And then they train it themselves. They're constantly interacting. Bran, for better or worse, has spent 7 years in the Vale, building it, interacting with his elves. And so it's learning from him. For example, like in the opening, we've got a hide and seek game going on. I'll show you the picture of that. Bran is playing hide and seek with his elf, Nomley, and the longer he takes to find his elf, the more the AI understands, Nomley understands, like that's a good hiding spot because, it took a while, and the better that Nomley plays. And that's just part of how the AI works and the training of it. But the AI, it was important for me to design a system that was ethical. And that is one of the themes of the story, that ethical people make ethical AI because they make those choices from the beginning.
This is a broad question, but what do you think the future of AI really is? Because I feel like right now, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I mean, you've gone to school for all of this, and I'm just looking at it as an outsider. So for me, I just think that there was a big investment in AI over the past 2 years, maybe, but it still doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it was a good investment to me. It's like I'll see certain things that people are creating, and there are certain times where I'm just like, oh wow, yeah, that looks really cool. And then I'm looking at it, and the longer I look at it, the more I'm like, oh, this was created with AI. Okay, I get it. So, but what do you think the kind of future of AI is? Because is it all going to be pretty much just this like constant barrage of garbage that's just sent out and made with no context and no thought for how it may affect people or the world? Or is it eventually going to be used to help us? That's, I think, what I would like to know.
Yeah, no, great question. I do think AI can, like any technology, can be used for good as well as negative. So example I like to give is lip reading technology, which is helpful for the hearing impaired. It has an innocuous, societally beneficial use, but it can also be weaponized for espionage. I can use it to see what people are saying across the room or hear what they're saying. So the same way with all of these creative tools, like my favorite analogy there is the iPhone. We no longer have that many portrait painters. And in fact, I attended my judge's portrait hanging ceremony in Washington, D.C. It was really lovely. It was painted by the same portrait painters as the Clintons' portrait painter in the White House, because there just are not that many people who do this. But everyone has an iPhone. And with the iPhone, everyone can take portraits. They do it all the time. They take selfies, they take friends' portraits, they take group shots, and they post them on social media for the world to see. So I think that's what these creative tools are going to do for people. People who may not be as facile with writing can now express their ideas using things like these large language models and these writing tools. Same with illustrations and visuals. People can now communicate and convey what's inside them using these AI tools in a much more upscaled way. But this doesn't mean we don't still have high-end photographers that are particularly skilled at that. And I think the talent will continue to rise. But I always tell creatives, like, it's so important that creatives learn how to use these tools and get on top of it themselves, because the tools are here to stay. And the humans have so much more to bring to the table. But you can also become even more leveraging technology. And, even to this day, like there were moments, I think, even in the filmmaking process when new technologies were always kind of looked at fearfully because like, that used to be humans and now it's tech. Agriculture, like the Grapes of Wrath, is all about that, right? It's the combination harvester. It replaced actual workers on the fields, and the workers try to fight it, but in the end they lose. Technology it keeps moving forward, and we can't stop it. But what we can do is just become the ones that are in charge of it.
From Curtis 50 Cent Jackson.
Tommy back.
Yeah, I am.
And the executive producers of Power.
There's levels to this game.
Comes the final season of Force.
We're gonna have to be careful about our next move.
We get what we can now, and take the rest later. This is gonna be the battle of our life. It's go time.
This is a dangerous life that I choose to be in with you.
Force.
Have a bet against me, because I'm always win.
Premieres November 7th, only on Stars and the Stars app.
Hey, welcome into Walgreens.
Hi there.
Hey.
All right, hon, I'll grab the gift wrap, cards, and, those stuffed animals the girls want.
Great, and I'll grab the string lights and some... How about I grab some cough drops?
This is not just a quick trip to Walgreens.
I'm fine, honey.
Well, just in case. You know what they say. 'Tis the season.
This is help staying healthy through the holidays. Walgreens.
Hello, friends. Guess who? That's right. It is I, the Replacer. Once again, I've been called on so you can play the new Call of Duty, Black Ops 7, with 3 expansive modes, 18 multiplayer maps, and the tastiest zombie gameplay you've ever freaking seen.
Available November 14th. Pre-order Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Now, rated M for mature.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses come with open-ear audio, so you can listen to your favorite music without blocking out the world around you.
Hey Meta, play Gorgeous.
Here's Gorgeous by Doja Cat.
You can also ask Meta AI questions.
Hey Meta, when's Doja Cat's next concert?
Doja Cat is playing at the Los Angeles Theater next Tuesday.
Sweet.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, available at Ray-Ban stores and other authorized retailers.
This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. Powerful yet smooth. Contained but never tame. Proudly going their own way, but never going alone. This is the spirit inside Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Made at Buffalo Trace Distillery, the world's most award-winning distillery. Buffalo Trace is always perfectly untamed. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Franklin County, Kentucky. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. Learn more at buffalotracedistillery.com. Please drink responsibly.
We're making an ad.
Napping ads.
I hear that Gary Sinise is free.
Oh, okay, great.
He hasn't worked since 2020.
So, what would be the script that we would have Gary Sinise say for the Napping Through Happy Hour podcast?
Listen to this damn show. Damn it.
The Napping Through Happy Hour podcast, brought to you by Geekscape.
Real life, real drama, real time.
I'm Gary Sinise.
That's the ad. That's the ad. That's the ad.
I would jump to Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies, because I feel like this is kind of a like a genre jump to, because it's more of like a mystery kind of thriller too, even though it's a romance. It's kind of blending certain things, and I love it when different genres are pulled together, especially romance. I love anytime there's romance with a little bit of intrigue that's like external. Can you tell us a little bit about that book, and then just what your inspiration for it was as well?
So first, I have to preface that when I started writing these novels, I had no idea about these categories. I didn't know Loveboat Taipei was a romantic comedy until the agents I started meeting told me it was. And same with Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies. I just wrote a story, and then I was told, oh, this is a young adult thriller / romantic comedy. And so I think I just write what I like to write, and I'm thankful that my readership is willing to come along for the ride. So Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies is about 3 Palo Alto high school teenagers that find themselves on the run from thugs chasing them for what turns out to be millions of dollars of cryptocurrencies that have accidentally come into their possession. And I actually started it as a short story in an anthology called Serendipity that I published with Macmillan. Marissa Meyer was the editor, and she invited me to join this group of 10 people overturning romantic tropes. And the trope that I inverted was class warfare. So the main character is Tan Lee. He's a smart kid from the Valley, but pretty much has imposter syndrome. He dated this girl who ended up ghosting him for a year, and that's Rebecca Zhang, the rich girl from China, from Shanghai, who ends up coming back into his life, and she's the one who's bringing all these thugs on her heels. And so for him, it's a journey of growing in self-confidence. It takes him becoming the target of this international heist for him to realize, wow, he's actually got some amazing skills, and he's at the center of a love triangle. But his main goal throughout is just to really protect his little sister, Sana, who he's been charged with babysitting during this time, as well as his friends and his family home. So it was a lot of fun to write. But it was different in the sense that it started as this short story, and then my editor, Macmillan, asked me to turn it into a novel. And so there was already a foundation that I was starting from. And I was specifically tasked with writing a babysitting story. And it is a babysitting story where, he's looking out for his little sister, but it ended up becoming so much more.
Yeah. I love, it made me think of maybe a more high stakes version of Adventures in Babysitting, but like with siblings, a sibling group instead.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like that's also a kind of genre blend too, where it's like it's a family comedy, but like teen movie, and there's a little bit of action and adventure in it. I love blending different genres, and I think that anytime a reader will follow an author into different genres or even just blended genres, I think the reader is going to be rewarded, because it's blending genres together kind of makes the book stand out. It gives something that might not be fresh, like a new kind of boost. And so you have this rom-com, which, okay, you have like, there's hundreds of rom-coms, let's say, published every month. And now you have one that is standing out in the world because it's like, oh, well, this one also has like this fun little thriller bend.
Yeah.
And I know in adult, they're doing that a lot with, they're making like the dark romances where it's like the main characters are serial killers and they're falling in love or something. And I'm like, I think that is also testament to the fact that as we have kind of progressed in society with genres, people are becoming more aware of what the tropes are. And this is a way for them to be like, okay, this is a different twist on this trope. And I like that.
Yeah.
And so it just keeps it fresh.
And what I've had to tell my readers too is like, it is a different story, a different kind of book. Loveboat Taipei, the trilogy, is a deeper character study. And it goes more into like, you know, this relationship between like cultural identity and honoring your family. And book three, actually, which we didn't talk about, Loveboat Forever, is about Ever's younger sister going on Loveboat 6 years later. So we get to see what happens to everyone. But that one's also a identity story of music. And like, she's a musician and trying to find her voice between her cultures and who she is. But Kisses, Codes, Conspiracies doesn't have any of this like deep, angsty character study. There is a character arc, but it is a fun adventure. They're on the run most of the time through all these places that I love in the Bay Area. But I did have to set that expectation. Like, it's not, you might, you know, it's a faster paced story, and it's not, you know, it's as plot driven as it is character driven.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, I love any time that there's I feel like anytime there's a great character on top of a good plot, it's like, okay, that's perfect. That's all I want in life. Because like, there's sometimes when there are like, some of my favorite books can be ones that are just about the character. There is no plot, and it's just about these characters. And I think that can be really rewarding to read. But sometimes I just want a really, really good stories with characters that I want to see kiss, that I love, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of us kind of want too.
Right. I don't think I mean, now that I'm saying it, maybe I will, but I think it would be hard for me to write a story that was only character, no plot. I think that would be a struggle.
I agree. I would struggle too. Is there anything in your head that, I'm going to ask you what you're working on now, but is there anything in your head that you would love to write, like any genre, or like even blend a genre for, where you'd love to write it, but just haven't yet?
Oh, you know, there's very little that I haven't dabbled in except horror. And I don't actually, everyone keeps asking me if I was going to do anything in horror. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do anything in horror.
I was hoping you were going to say horror.
Everyone's doing it now, especially because I'm in the film world too. And it's actually less expensive to do horror because it's all makeup and, you know, just camera. And there can be really good horror. I think I can't even watch it. I have to cover my eyes when I'm watching horror. So I feel like that's a genre I will never actually write. But I am trying everything. I have, so The Vale it's technically middle grade. Again, I wrote it without thinking about the category, but the kid is 13 and there's a romance in it. So I'm not really sure it's properly classified as middle grade. All my books read up anyways. And then I have a middle grade graphic novel that's coming out. And that one is definitely middle grade. It's called The Fidget Booth, coming with HarperCollins. Harper Alley is their graphic novel imprint. And that'll probably be out in 2027. It's finished. It's about an intergenerational ADHD family. And it's called The Fidget Booth. And then after that, I'm actually working on a young adult dystopian. So that's a bit of a new space for me. But again, like I've read widely my whole life. I love all stories. So that one I think will be a little bit different. And then I have an adult historical that's in me, but I actually just found out that I could potentially make that into an adult graphic novel. So I'm going to explore that next. I'd rather do that as graphic novel than as a historical novel. But if it comes out, the latter, that's okay too.
How was working on a graphic novel? Because I think we had a couple people who had graphic novels on the podcast, and they said it's like it's similar, but it's almost a completely different kind of exercise because you're limited significantly more on what you can write in. Mm-hmm. And you've already said, like with Loveboat Taipei, that was already like a behemoth before you even had it published. So I assume you're like me, where you're kind of an overwriter, mm-hmm. and then you have to pare back eventually.
Totally.
So how do you do that with a graphic novel where you are required to stay within certain panels, and like you have to be aware of when people are turning the pages, mm-hmm. where things are picking up, and that you're not spoiling anything too soon, like when they first turn the page and all of a sudden see something huge over here on the right side of the page.
Right. So I find that graphic novels are more similar to screenwriting, which I'm also dabbling with. And I do find it strange that the industry tries to cut us up into these different silos, TV versus film. And for me, it's all story. And that's like the paramount thing. It's all story. And we get to use these different tools to convey the story. And with a graphic novel, like we have the benefit of having images and the benefit of like a panel, like a line of panels that bleed into each other, because that's a different experience. So I think of it as just like, I have a whole bag of tools and I get to pull them out and use them in a graphic novel. Like I have more tools. But it's true, like I can't have long panels of interiority, but I can do a little bit of text about what my character might be thinking in that moment. And then the picture itself says it all. Like he's thoughtful, he's crying, he's scared, he's afraid. But I do find graphic novels take a long time. The Fidget Booth, I actually started as a short story in probably like 2021 or 2022. And it was in an anthology that didn't get picked up. And so when Hollywood folks were asking me what else I had, all I had was this dead short story. And my agent was like, you cannot give it to them until you publish it. So she's the one who suggested I turn it into a graphic novel. And I'd never written one at the time, but she just handed me a bunch of samples and I was off to the races. I wrote the script, but I didn't know it was going to take so long. So for the Vale, the Vale actually goes back and forth between the real world and it has 40 different illustrations. The end papers are colored, but there's also my whole team signed it for me. There's also the Book of Elf. And initially we were thinking of doing that as a graphic novel. So here's like the real world chapter. And then the next chapter is beautifully marked by these pages that show that it's a different type of book. It's an ancient.
Okay, yeah.
So initially we were going to do a graphic novel and go back and forth between that. And then I found how long it took. And since this is a book about AI generation and it was time to publish it, I didn't want to spend all that time. And it ended up being even stronger doing it with just 40 illustrations versus a graphic novel is like 600 illustrations. And we're still going on the HarperCollins one.
I know we had somebody on here. Their name's Samina Popescu. They're from Romania, and their debut graphic novel just came out this year. And when I asked them what they're working on now, they were just starting to draft the new one. And so they said that it's going to be probably not until 2028, 2029, something like that, until it would even come out. And I was like, great, we'll have you on in about 3 to 4 years. Sounds good. I would love to write a graphic novel one day. I feel like I haven't gotten the idea for it yet. Everything that I've written so far, like all the ideas, I'm just like, oh, I think this is more of a novel. I don't think it's a graphic novel. So it's something I hope to do in the future.
Well, if there's something that you think could be a movie, you could consider that one for a graphic novel, because anything I think that can be made into a movie, I'm part of this accelerator in Hollywood, and I taught 2 classes on how to turn your script into a novel. And for me, I'm like, it's so easy. Your script is already a novel. Like you've got the whole story there. All you need to do is fill in some of the interiority. And instead of writing exterior, temple, you describe the temple. But a lot of them actually could also turn their scripts into graphic novels. And in some ways, that's almost an easier transition because then they can keep the visuals. So Yeah, so I think it's kind of similar. If you have a book that you think would make a great movie, think about whether that could also be a graphic novel.
Yeah. I have a friend who actually writes all of his first drafts as a screenplay and like has it in final draft. And then what he will do is he'll export it to Microsoft Word, and then he'll take out all of the formatting and everything, and he'll start to kind of just describe the world. Like he always says he just does it like he's describing it to somebody who has no sight, and he's describing a movie that has no sight. And so that's where he gets all of his internal stuff from, and all the like the rest of his books.
Oh, I love that. That's a great tip. Yeah.
I feel like that like it also helps it kind of create a really nice readability, because sometimes I will do this sometimes where if I'm writing a scene, it might go on too long, and you can't do that in a screenplay. And so the screenplay, you have to, as soon as you start the scene, you need to know what the point of the scene is, and then you basically write it.
It's basically an outline, right? It's a structure.
Yeah. And I feel like doing that, I've been trying to think about, I was thinking about trying to do that at some point, but I don't know. Every time I try to switch out how I write, it always backfires, and I end up just going into whatever my normal routine is. But
right. Yeah,
it's one of those, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of things. But I don't know. Yeah,
it is a different skill. Like, I'm actually writing the feature film script for The Vale, and I'm finding like a movie is so short. I had no idea it was so short. But similarly, I had to cut out 5 points of view and turn it into one for Loveboat Taipei. I feel like that's the exercise here. Turning The Vale into a script means basically doing the same type of slash and burn, and then just finding the one nugget of story that can actually fill out 90 minutes.
You know what? That is a great. There's a great point to go back to something else I wanted to talk to you about: the Loveboat Taipei movie, Love in Taipei. It is very different from the book, right? Because they did something similar where it was an adaptation, and it is not the entire book that you have written. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So I know some of the fans were unhappy with the way it ended. And what I've told them is, one, a book is written just by one person. It's the author of the page, and then you've got your editor and agents weighing in, but that's about it. And a movie is made by 300 people. So there are 300 creatives bringing their sensibilities to a project, and they all take it and shape it in different ways. And I think for me, I'm just mostly thrilled that so many talented people were willing to put their work and add their creativity to this, to bring the story to a larger audience. But then that also means the story ended up kind of finding a different path. And so story-wise, what I tell my readers is the movie, the romance especially, ends at the midpoint of the novel, the first novel, but the journey continues in the first novel, the second novel, and the third, which takes you through 6 years later so that you can find out what happens to everyone.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about adaptations. I never judge a movie based on if it is a good adaptation or not. I just want to know if it's a good movie. Like, I feel like the most obvious one, you probably won't like it because it's horror, but the author who is most vocal about how disappointed he was in one of his movies was The Shining, Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think anybody would say, oh, that's a terrible movie, because it's not. It's a well-made movie. It's Stanley Kubrick, who's a visionary. So obviously it has something there for people who want to see it, but it is not a great adaptation. So I don't think that when people are watching movies that are adaptations of a book, I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, well, the book was so much better because of X, Y, Z. And it's like, no. Watch it as its own thing, because the book already exists. That is already your story that you have worked hard on. This, like you were saying, is 300 other people's interpretation of this. 300 other people who liked your story and wanted to bring it to more people. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But the books are always going to still be there. Just enjoy them instead.
Yeah. And I mean, even for me, the book, I published Loveboat Taipei version 31. And I told that to my producers, like, I'm very iterative. I've experienced every version of this multiverse. And I think that's really what I think of the movie is another version of the multiverse that could be the story.
Yeah, I love that too. Like, how involved were you with like just not writing the movie, but like the whole pre-production and then like into the production of it? Like, was it something that you wanted to be involved with, or was it something they asked you to be involved with?
Yeah, no, very much. I was very involved. I was an executive producer, and it was important to my team, especially, and to me, because it's a really unusual story about a completely Asian American story, like uniquely Asian American. And so for me, I was, the voice of authenticity and having that portrayed accurately, the representation being portrayed respectfully was really important to me. So, but it was also my opportunity to learn how to make a movie. And I'm a good student, so I interviewed everybody and found out what everyone did. All 300 people whose names appear at the end, they all have a job. And I think that's fascinating how that all comes together. So I was, I helped to choose the screenwriter, the director I'd met prior to, deciding on producers, and then the casting process was fun. Ashley, who ends up playing our star, really kind of just leaped to the top of our list of many, many wonderful people who came through auditions. And then a pandemic meant that very few of us end up going to Taiwan to film. It was just me, the cast, and 2 young executive production folks. And we were just running around on the ground by ourselves making this movie. So that, I think, probably ended up being more of a growing experience than if we were in the absence of pandemic, and I probably, as an author, would have been put into Video Village. So I learned a ton working on that film, and I was able to parlay it into making a short film prequel to The Vale. So
yes, with Leah Salonde.
Right, Leah Salonde, my childhood hero.
Incredible. Let's talk about that. How exciting was that to do? And that was your directorial debut as well. So
That's
it's
right.
like that's like huge and exciting for a book that was your MFA that is also being published, and you get to have your short like directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
All of that.
The funny thing is the short film came first. I was thinking I'd like to move into directing, and I was told you needed a calling card for that. So, come up with a short film. And so when I looked through all my works, the only story I could come up with that was discreet enough to do a short film was The Origins of the Vale. It's like really just a flashback in the novel, backstory of why this Vale is so important to Bran. Basically, his mother wasn't able to have more children, but he really wanted a little brother or a little sister or a younger sibling. And after a miscarriage, the family's in mourning, and they end up they see that Bran is creating this like whole world by drawing this elf and this elf village and so mom and dad, who are also like animators and creatives, and his mom is a roboticist, they build the Vale so that Bran can like have this world, and that's how it all began. So I was like, I could turn that into a short film, and also it doubled as a proof of concept for this very strange book that goes back and forth between the real world and the animated virtual reality world. And I knew that was a complex thing that would make it harder to get that to the screen. I was able to do it, and I'm going to be very transparent about numbers, $120,000 to make 13 minutes of footage. So it ends up being about $10,000 a minute, which is incredibly cost effective.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show that like I can make this beautiful, complex film at a budget. And it also showcases my abilities as a director artistically. So I had all that in the works when I connected with my publisher, Third State Books. Stephanie Lim had gone to Harvard a few years after me, and I loved what she was doing, and she worked in tech previously, and she loved The Vale. And so for a lot of reasons, it felt like the right fit. It's a tech positive story. And, as I said, I really want kids to come away with a stronger understanding of how the tech works so they can take advantage of it. And she's very much in support of that at a time when I think there's a lot of fear around the technology still. So publishing with it, Third State Books, meant I could keep so much of it that I might have had to take out in traditional publishing. So it's actually a 4-quadrant story. It appeals to kids of all ages, all genres, all genders, and then, kids to adults. So in the way that like a Pixar movie, the whole family can sit down and watch it together. Yeah. The Vale is written that way, which actually ends up making it easier to adapt to film as well.
Love that. It's very exciting. I think it says so much about you as I think an artist that you are thinking about moving into this new medium and you're already cognizant of the limitations that are placed on creators who are making things like with budget, because especially now with how little I guess return on investment there is on movies, there's producers who are less willing to take a risk on something that they can't on a piece of paper say, all right, this is what it's about, this is who it's for, this is how much it's going to cost. And I think you are already kind of setting yourself up for success by being aware of a budget and how you can stay in, like, not only on budget, but like create something that looks good and expensive and actually is not, which I think is what all filmmaking should be doing right now. Mm-hmm. That isn't created by Disney, I feel like. But I think there was, I want to say that I think it was a writer who was accepting an Oscar maybe last year or the year before that's like, no, just stop making, you can either make $100 million movie or you can make $10 million movies. Start doing that and taking risks, making the $10 million movies, because you will see more dividends that way. And I think that's true. So I'm excited for you. I hope that this becomes like your jumping off point to becoming like a huge director, because that's exciting to me. It's just knowing that you're like, okay, here's how we have something that I want to tell this story. This is how we're going to tell it. And this is how it's going to be under budget. Boom.
Thank you.
I worked in LA for a little bit and I would do script coverage. And part of that is figuring out what the budget, what the budget would span. And it's like, if it's XYZ and no famous faces, and it's like, you can still do this, here's probably the budget. If it's famous people, you need at least 2 stars to star in this. Now, all of a sudden, you need somebody who is also a well-known director with a track record with, you need another screenwriter to kind of beef this script up and blah, 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 blah. All of that to say, Hollywood's a hard place. And I think it's exciting that you were like, I'm going to have my own short to go out with that is written and directed by me. And it's going to present like pretty much the best version of me as an artist kind of thing. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a funny world and I'm finding my way in it.
Yeah, that's great. Before I let you go, I want to know, what are you reading right now?
Oh gosh, what am I reading? Mike Lowe, who's a friend from Harvard, he's the editor in chief of NewYorker.com, just wrote a book, Strangers in the Land. It's a history of Asian Americans in our country. And I think it's brilliant. I think it is a seminal work on our community. And it's, hundreds of years of history. And I think it's brilliant.
No, it sounds really good. Okay. Well, I think, is there anything before we end and wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you? Because usually it's, I'm here with Alyssa and she can kind of jump off things, but I just want to make sure that there's nothing I missed when I was talking with you.
When does this come out? Because I'm on tour, so I can talk about my tour schedule in case people can catch me on tour. Or
Matt, what's the schedule for this one? I'll write it in this little thing if he's paying attention, I guess. November 4th.
Okay, so that's after some of my tour stops. I guess maybe you can ask, how can people support? How can people find me? And then I can talk.
Yeah. Well, yeah, how can people find you and support you as well?
So the best way to stay in touch is through my newsletter. You can sign up on my webpage, abigailhingwen.com. It's the best way to stay in touch. I send out the newsletter myself, and so you can email me back. And I'll let you know about private screenings for the Vale short film that are happening around the country. We're also going to go through the film festival circuit, so I can let you know that. I just came on a massive tour through I was in Austin, Texas. I'm going to Tucson, Chicago, Columbus, Cleveland. I'll be in Boston December 2nd. So if any Boston folks are listening to this podcast, you can join me there and find more information by, again, signing up for my newsletter. I can't post the private screenings publicly, so that it really is the best way to stay in touch on those. But otherwise, my public events are also on my website and on social media. I'm at Abigail Hing Wen.
Great. Well, Abigail, it was great talking with you, and I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. And thank you so much for doing this.
When she asked me
So, Matt, how did I do alone on the show? Like, was it fun? Was it great?
You know, I don't want to scare our co-host.
Tell me you love me, Matt.
But you did fine.
Fine?
Dare I say better without her? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how we find out if Alyssa actually listens to the episode she's not on or not.
Great point. She never brings it up. Then
she does. She never talks about how we talked about her. But Eric, what have you been reading, sir?
I am reading still that same book of short stories, but I have, you know what? I have been it's an 800-page book. I'm a little burnt out on it. I'm going to be honest. I think it's a little bit repetitive in the beginning. So I'm actually going to try and find something new to read this afternoon, because I think I'm just going to kind of leave it where it is and then revisit it later, because it's just short stories. I can pick that up anytime. I want to read a book. I want to get invested in some characters. I think I've been reading it for about like 400 pages. I'm like, I want to invest in something now. I'm looking for a long-term relationship in reading.
I'm not going to talk about what I recently read. I'd much rather talk about what I'm about to start, which is,
because it's a plug for me.
Yeah. Better the Devil from Eric J. Brown, which I'm recording. You're going to hear this on November 5th or 4th. You're going to hear this on November 4th. We're recording this on September 30th. So I am kicking off spooky season with Eric's spooky book. And what do we say in March? March, we're going to do a homeboy, you better have read it by now because we're about to spoil the shit out of it discussion, right?
Yeah.
So
I think 3 months in is good for anybody who wants to like listen to the episodes as they come out. But then, of course, if you can't get to it by then, just save it for later.
Save it for later. But pre-order's still up, and the book comes out in January of next year. So this is my quick little plug to go get a copy of Better the Devil. And Eric, if people go and tell us their thoughts on the show and on your book, the best place is always going to be YAOK Podcast on Instagram. Anything else you need to plug before we wrap it up?
No, just my book, Better the Devil. It's out January 20th, and I'm trying to pre-sale the shit out of it. So you're gonna keep hearing about it probably every single week.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of YAOK.
Maybe with Alyssa.
Maybe. Who knows? If she can find the time.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.